Well, I'm very excited to be here. So you are our first female tech founder. I love that.
Well, that's flattering.
Yeah. So why don't you tell us what you're up to today?
As the starting of my fourth company, Mavely is a curated shopping experience for communal shopping, which is the idea that, Karen, you and I could both be shopping together. And if you were to buy a sweater that I recommended, you earn cash back and I earn cash back too.
Where has this been all my life? Because I'm an avid shopper.
I know. We started about a year and a half ago. It's been taking off.
Genius, yeah.
Grown across the country, and it's really my probably my sixth child.
Okay, yeah. So tell us how the concept came to be.
The concept came to be because my investor and I had the idea that we wanted to solve the cost to acquire a new consumer. So brands that are up and coming, new female founded brands, that's kind of our focus is female founded brands. They're always looking to acquire customers at a lower cost.
Yeah, so customer acquisition cost. Yeah.
Correct. So we were able to distribute their products at a lower cost to acquire a new consumer through a network of women around the country that do what women do naturally, which is share products we love. Yeah.
So because you've got the platform and access to the consumers and they're a new brand and they maybe don't have that access. And so that's the value that you bring.
Exactly.
Okay. And then talk a little bit about the savings back that the consumer gets.
Sure. So anytime you shop, you earn cash back. Anytime you refer or share a product with a friend, they earn cash back and you earn cash back too. And then as we bring people into our partner program, which is women who are actually using this as a way to drive a residual income for themselves, they're actually sharing the Mavely app with people, and then they're earning off of your sharing and shopping as well. So it's been also a way for people and organizations to do fundraising. So if your school is looking for a way to do a lot of shopping and sharing like women do every single day, they can download Mavely and a percentage of the sales can go back to the school.
Okay, I love that.
Or the church or the fundraiser.
This is the way I'm going to tell my husband is the more I spend, the more I save.
Absolutely.
That's the pitch. So why female-founded brands?
Well, we try to focus on female-founded brands, sustainable brands, philanthropic brands, brands that are doing good. And a lot of those are direct-to-consumer brands. So they're not the brands that you would find on the shelf at Walmart or Target or Nordstrom's or Macy's. They're really direct-to-consumer brands going directly to the consumer, and we're really the distribution model for them. So female-founded brands just happens to be kind of my project or my passion of helping female founders get discovered.
Well, I like that because you're not getting the cookie cutter thing on the shelf. You're getting a unique, bespoke experience.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think women know better than anyone else if you're looking for a bathing suit that really holds you in or a pair of jeans that make you look good after you've had your fifth child. Women know what kind of products that we need, and we're the best ones to recommend those to each other. And what better thing can we do than support a female founder?
So talk a little bit about the genesis, because I love to hear the origin story. I mean, I know you guys had the concept, but like how long ago was that? How did you get to, because you're pretty well established at this point. The app is launched. You've got a good amount of users. It's cooking. You've got the vendors on the platform, but that's not an easy feat.
No.
And so I want to hear how it started.
Absolutely. Well, one of the ways that it really started is I am the baby of 10 children.
Oh my goodness.
And I have 7 older sisters. And historically, my entire life, I've turned to my sisters for things like necklace or a scarf or a bathing suit or cooking for my family, household goods. Even when I bought my first home, I brought my oldest sister with me to kind of give it the inspection. Aww. And so I thought, what better way to take recommendations and referrals from women as women do naturally and create a platform for which we can share those products, which is really how communal shopping works. I love the idea of recommending a product to a friend, but I also like reading reviews and ratings from friends. The cashback is just icing on the cake, but I do like when I'm shopping online, especially to read reviews and ratings.
I like when the people send in photos for some reason. I'm sure everybody does, but that's like my favorite thing.
Absolutely, because we think if we look at it from the brand,
it's like perfect and they've got it styled exactly the way it should be. Yeah, I like seeing
and
it.
The model's a size 0. And you think, I want to know what this looks like on the everyday woman. Yeah. And that was a part of how this got started. We saw that social commerce was booming with influencers making an awful lot of money by recommending products to people.
I missed that boat.
Yeah, absolutely. But what we knew to be true is that everyday women share and recommend products every single day. So we thought, what if we can find an amazing collection of brands that are willing to reward everyday women for something that we do naturally, and we could create a culture or an environment or a community where I'm recommending products to my friends without pushing something on you so that I can profit. We wanted to make it a win-win for both women.
Yeah, I like that. And why the name Mavely?
The name Mavely became because when women share products, we share products based on what we're most passionate about. So I always share products about cooking. I share products about raising children. I share products about workout wear.
Yeah.
So we consider those women to be mavens. They're kind of a connoisseur of their goods. So maven being the root word and Mavely being our platform.
I like that. And so did you have a tech background? I mean, we'll talk about your other previous companies, but like, are you a coder?
No, engineering, coding are definitely not my strengths. My strengths lie on building communities of women, empowering women. And I think the best way that we can empower women is putting more money back in her pocket.
Okay. So you get the idea, you kind of have the concept down. And then since you're not in the tech engineering background, what do you do next? Do you raise capital or do you go find the engineering folks?
The first thing that we really did was we looked at the business model itself, and we thought, what would be the three most critical components to make this successful? One of which was our community of users. The second piece was the technology itself. And then the third part is as a three-sided marketplace is really our brands. And so my VC and I sat down and we talked and we thought, what would be three rock stars that we could bring together to make this successful? And he found my two partners, Evan Ray and Sean O'Brien, from a tech standpoint, brand and strategy standpoint.
Okay.
They had massive success in their early 20s. And they came to the table and they saw my vision with Mavely, and we jumped on board about a year and a half ago, and it's been a great adventure so far.
Yeah, that's a pretty fast turnaround, year and a half. And the reason I'm honing in on this is because I teach an innovation class at DePaul, and the first thing the students come up with as far as an innovation is an app. And I'm like, unless you're going to code it by the end of this 10-week course, I don't want you to talk about an app. Or I think everybody thinks I'm going to have the next app, and there's a lot more that goes into it. And yeah.
Absolutely. There's a lot financially that goes into building an app. And one of the things we wanted to make sure that we could nail was solving a problem for our user, having a beautiful user design and experience, as well as the back-end engineering, coding, and then connection with our affiliate programs and our brand. So there's an awful lot that goes into it. But the first thing is that your app has to truly solve a problem so that the user wants to come back every single day.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And even myself, I'm getting away from brick and mortar, and obviously the timing is right. So I'm very excited to see where this goes. So you said this is your fourth company. So say a little bit more about that. Serial entrepreneur that you are.
Well, you know what? I think there are certain people that are kind of born they're cut out right away from the very beginning of wanting to.
And it never goes away, by the way.
I don't think
it's an affliction, as I like to call it, for me at least.
I think it's one of those things that there's a combination of grit and desire to solve problems, and a desire to think outside the box. Yeah. And so when you're really ready to solve a problem that you see that can benefit other people, that's where my heart gets set on fire. And so my last company was designed for churches to help people who were not necessarily attending church on a regular basis, but it was used as a way for people to get involved in donating their time and their talent to feed the hungry and to clothe the naked and to shelter the homeless. And that was my app that I designed with the University of Notre Dame and the Innovation Park there to really solve that problem of helping people get involved in their church from a more centric way of their heart, where their heart wanted to be involved in prayer, giving, time, and talent and treasure.
And so is that something that you saw a gap in your own church, or how did that come about?
Absolutely. I mean, I saw it across America where
the church not the most technologically advanced.
Oh, correct. And people register for, if someone goes to the hospital, one of the very first things that they do is they say that they're affiliated with a church in their town, but they don't necessarily show up at that church every single week. But those same people are really eager to get involved if there is a, coat raise for the winter. They're the first people to bring in coats or shoes or backpacks when kids are going back to school. So people want to be involved in service. Yeah. They want to be involved in their communities. They want to be involved in giving of their time and their treasure They may just not show up for church every single Sunday. And so our app was designed to create solving and meeting those individuals for where they're at and bringing them back into their church community.
Okay. And how long did that company take?
It was about 4 years.
Okay.
It was 4 years, and then we ended up selling it to one of the largest church companies in the country.
Okay, nice. And so did you take VC money for that, or was it bootstrapped? Or
We did. Our VC was amazing, and we also did put in an awful lot of our own money.
Sure.
But it was another passion project, a
Yeah.
mission-based project, but it did turn the dial on what we believe to be the church and technology.
And is it out there in space today?
It's called OneParish, and
Okay.
it's now owned by J.S. Pollock, and it's a great Catholic family in the Chicagoland area.
Yeah.
And so they've done great things to advance it, and it helped them also meet the needs of the church bulletin.
Yeah.
So it was a more electronic way as a communication tool to help reach people who were not coming into church every single Sunday.
And has it grown since?
It has grown, and they've done a great job with it, and I was thrilled to be able to be a part of it from the very beginning.
Okay, awesome. And so that's the third company.
Yep.
So 1 and 2, let's talk about those.
My first company was a women's coaching business where
Okay.
I wrote a book and did quite a few speaking engagements, and I was coaching women one-on-one, specifically around balancing their life, their faith, and their family, and their strengths. And then I also had a women's skincare business.
Okay, nice. And so you talked about family. You have 5 children yourself.
Yes.
I barely survived one. I mean, she's a doll now, and I would take 10 of her, but she's 14. And so, so say a little bit more about the balancing part of it, because I have no answers for that.
Well, as you know, with a 14-year-old, teenagers are busy.
Yeah. Oh,
but
yeah.
All children keep a family busy. And I think that, when you're passionate about your startup and you're passionate about your family, the best that you can do is get really good at saying no.
Yeah.
Saying no to the things that don't need your time, that
Yeah.
maybe in the past when you had more time, you were able to say yes to everything. So I find it a little bit easier to say no when I really focus on what are the most important things that my children want me to participate in and be involved in. Instead of saying yes to everything, I try to really show up for the things that matter the most to them. And then I feel like that's where we connect. Even if I'm only on the sideline watching one of their games or
Sure.
helping out in the classroom, if it's something that matters to them, that's where I choose to show up. And then I have to say no, and I miss other things.
Yeah. And what are their ages?
I have a 19-year-old, an 18-year-old, a 16-year-old, a 14-year-old, and an 11-year-old
Oh,
little
those
girl.
are all-
4 girls, 1 boy.
Oh, wow. Where's the boy fall?
Right in the middle.
Okay. Nice. Yeah. Those are fun ages. What about your family? So it's funny. My daughter just said that she read an article on how the youngest person in the family ends up being the most successful. I'm the youngest in my family. I have 3 other
I am
brothers.
too.
Yeah. So she's like, well, I'm an only child, so it means me too. I'm like, okay, I guess so. But what is your family like, and how did they embrace your entrepreneurship? And
That's a great question. Thank you for asking. The church company that we had, all 5 of our children traveled with us around the country. Every time we would launch a new church,
sure,
they would stand at the back.
I love
And
that.
as people were coming out, they would teach people how to download an app,
And they're
which was
probably
amazing.
better suited to do it than anybody anyway. Yeah.
Absolutely. And if you think about it, many of the parishioners who come to a church on a regular basis are 45 and above. And so, especially when you start to talk about 70-year-olds or 80-year-olds who are coming out of church and they have a smartphone, but they've never really downloaded or used an app, they loved it. And so my children would stand with them and they would teach them how to download the app. So when I got ready to start this company, we sat around the table and we had a long discussion about what would it look like if mom started another company.
Yeah. Yeah.
And although they were not involved every single day with this, they are involved in different elements. Most importantly, they're pitching in more around the house, which was something that was going to be needed. That if I was going to go down this path again, I needed to have all 5 of the children, plus my husband and I, actively involved in the day-to-day chores, and they've done a great job with that. I'm also really proud of my teenage daughters because they know shopping better than anyone.
Yeah. Right. Right.
And they've jumped right into shopping and sharing on the app. We're looking to launch a college ambassador program,
oh, cool.
teaching college girls how to create an extra stream of income for themselves by doing what girls do anyways, shop and share things on social.
And I think the sustainability piece will be big there. Coming from academia, that's really important to
Absolutely.
the
I
younger
think
folks.
the 18, 19, 20-year-olds are very concerned about being socially conscious, and many of our brands fit that mold.
Yeah.
And so
even
that's
willing to
where-
pay more.
Absolutely.
for that. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I think if you're going to get a product that you know is sustainable, a female founder, people are willing to pay more when they know that they're getting great quality.
Nice.
And cash back.
Yeah, who doesn't love that? Yeah. So you mentioned that you've got a VC that you work with and you raised capital before. So this is an area of research actually that I take a look at, and women only receive about 2 to 3% of the venture capital out there. So in the grand scheme of things, very small percentage. Chicago's actually better though. There's a large amount of women tech founders here in Chicago. I actually think Chicago is the highest. Don't quote me on that. So what has your experience been like that, being female and going after dollars?
My experience has always been focused on building relationships, and the people that have invested in Mavely and my last company, I feel like I have been rooted in building a relationship with them first.
Yeah, and they know who you are as a, yeah.
Absolutely. No, I mean, having that established relationship as well as success with proven business metrics, as well as showing momentum.
Yeah.
So although the numbers may not grow immediately from day one, the continual momentum and the building of the business, great communication with your VC, indicating all of your numbers and being very transparent about that. Those are all things that have led me to have a very seamless and smooth experience with my VC.
Yeah, that's good.
And I think that you're right. Chicago has a great deal of women tech founders, as well as women who invest in other women.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something to really consider when you're looking at raising money, to connect with other female founders and find out what worked for them and who were supporters.
Yeah, I always like the story of Sarah Blakely and Spanx, where she would go around trying to get capital and they just didn't understand bras and shapewear. But now I'm sure they're kicking themselves that they didn't invest. So
I hear that over and over again. And I think that the less we talk about it and the more we prove it wrong, the better.
Yeah, I agree. So I read in one of your interviews that inspiring women both personally and professionally, and obviously having a coaching background falls into that, was really important to you. Can you say more about that and why that's so important?
I think, I was raised with a very quiet and humble mother who...
Are you from Chicago, born and raised in Chicago?
Born and raised in Chicago.
Why don't you have my bad accent?
I don't know. I've often
or maybe we don't hear it on each other.
Correct. I don't say soda pop or anything in the South. My mother was a very, very good listener. And I think that she did a great job of helping find inherently people's strengths. And I think she's done a really good job of training my sisters, my brothers, and I on trying to do that with others. And so when I have my own 5 children, as well as women that I've worked with, I love to try to focus on what is that individual's strengths and how are they using those in the world? Because I think it's so easy for women typically to compare ourselves to other women.
Yeah.
And I think it's very easy for women to be especially hard on ourselves.
Yeah.
Especially like you were talking about in raising money or running a business or starting a business, balancing business and family. And I like to try to turn that around and focus on where are your strengths and how are you living in those strengths, because that's where you're going to ultimately be most abundant and most fruitful.
Okay. I like that. So what role does your faith play? I mean, obviously your third endeavor, the OneParish, big part of the church component. So what does that play in your life?
I think if I go back to my dad, our faith was paramount to our upbringing.
Sure.
My dad rooted us every single weekend, and we were the family that was doing the pancake breakfast and the spaghetti dinners and the ice cream social. And
which still happened today, by the way. Yeah.
And my dad sat on every council, and he had us involved in the minute the church was being built. He was actually, there's photos of my dad with the shovel actually digging the ground in the early 70s. And that became central to our family with something very basic as sitting around the dinner table for dinner every single night.
Yeah.
And some of those basic rituals that many of our families have lost sight of, we have tried to keep those central to our family. So, saying our prayers at night before we go to bed with our children and eating dinner at the dinner table and taking time at the dinner table to reflect upon what we're thankful for. Those elements of my faith have become kind of the cornerstone to all the ups and all the downs.
Yeah.
And
The
so
one constant. Yeah.
yeah, so I feel like I go back to that on a regular basis to keep myself rooted in, again, I've talked both about both my parents in some of my core values.
Yeah. I love that. That's my favorite part of the day is when we have dinner together around 5:30, we all get together. And then if we go off and do our separate things after that, that's okay. But we've all come together at least for dinner every day. Yeah.
Well, and don't get me wrong. I mean, with the seven of us, we're busy and
Yeah.
we don't get to eat dinner as often as we would like. And sometimes it's not at the dinner table and it's at the island. And
Yeah.
sometimes
Or you're
it's
FaceTiming.
honestly-
Yeah.
and sometimes it's in the car that we're eating dinner
Yeah.
on the go. But that ritual of try to be consistent with that, we all need it.
Yeah.
I mean, we all need to just put our phones away and have that dinner time. And then part of when we started Mavely was a mission statement we had of let's get more moms back to the dinner table,
I like
because
that.
we think that's where we all grow faster and closer together.
Yeah. And is your husband involved in the business at all?
No, not
Okay.
Mavely.
Okay,
No,
nice.
he is by supporting me.
Yeah.
and-
Yeah. Well, that was my next question. Yeah.
and by getting more dinner on the table, quite honestly.
Good. And he's good with that. So you do have a book out, Living in Your Calling versus Chasing Your Craving. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Well, I think you would probably relate to this, that many days, or we just had, February 2nd, that feels like Groundhog Day, where we
Yeah.
wake up and we get back on the hamster wheel and we're chasing and chasing
Yeah.
and chasing and running and running, running, running. And we don't really slow down to figure out, are we living in our calling or are we just chasing the next best thing? Either
For the short term. Yeah.
Correct. And so I actually wrote this book as a reflection on my life and where I have done that too, where I got on the hamster wheel and I started running and chasing either monetary,
Yeah.
even our
Which
fitness.
never works.
No, desire for, a smaller size, to be wearing a smaller size or to have a bigger house or a bigger car or the next vacation. And quite often, as I said, when we live in our strengths, it gives us that opportunity to go back and figure out, are we really living in our values, our calling, or are we chasing something that we're craving?
I like that. So 4 companies, one with successful exit, one on the way. What advice do you have for upcoming or entrepreneurs that are just starting out?
I just recently read the book, The Messy Middle,
Yeah, you were talking about that. I haven't picked it up yet.
Scott Belcher. It's a fabulous book because, when you start a company, it's so, I like to, and I think he used the word too, it can be really romantic. I mean, you're so
Yeah.
excited and everything is, there's tons of energy. There's
Yeah.
tons of whiteboard sessions. There's all this excitement. And then you get into the middle of the business and it can get, messy and it's sticky and it's very hard. And there's a lot more low days than high days. And there's a lot more doors being shut or frustrations. And then if you get to sell the company, again, it gets very exhilarating and
Yeah.
exciting. And so it's how do you ride out that middle time, being strategic, being innovative, leveraging your strengths, leveraging the team's strengths, calling on other outside resources that can help you build the business, open doors, create that next growth hack. And that takes a lot of, grit and ingenuity and perseverance. And so those are some of the things that I would, I guess, share with other female founders that expect that the middle will be messy.
Yeah.
But you can move through that if you can continue to keep a sense of, I wouldn't even use the word balance because quite honestly,
Yeah.
I used to think life was balanced. And I've learned when you do a startup, there's no balance. It's like
Yeah.
50% of my life is my work, 50% is
I wish.
my children. And sometimes that's not even in balance. So I would tell a female founder, expect that the messy is going to be middle, but try to find some joy in that chaos.
Yeah. And that you're going to probably end up doing the things that maybe you don't like to do. Maybe the finance part isn't your favorite, but in the middle, you're going to end up wearing all hats and doing all different things.
Absolutely. With a startup, part of the goal of a startup is that you need to stay lean. And you stay lean by wearing many hats and taking the money that you're receiving and trying to make the longest runway you possibly can to lift your product up off the ground. And that means that sometimes you're going to be, doing some YouTube research on some financial aspect of the business that maybe you've never done before. But I've also found that when you get a VC that's really supportive, they are amazing at stepping in and helping you with strategy and and giving feedback on your North Star and keeping you on track with that. So that communication with your VC, I think, has been really helpful for us, and we've had incredible partners.
Yeah, I love that. And when I interviewed our friend Jean Lavalle from Wesos, that was one thing she talked about is like, there are tons of people available to help you if you just ask.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think, that's one of the things when you talked about inspiring and supporting and coaching, empowering women. I feel like I've been pretty blessed with some mentors and coaches that have been very generous with their time coaching me. And that's something that I try to pass on to other women that need a cup of coffee or need to pop on a quick phone call about raising money or, growth hacking or app development or user experience, because that was what was extended to me. So if I can extend that to the next woman by opening up the door or reaching out a hand to her, I'm always trying to make that something I have time for.
Yeah, I love that. So what's next for you and Mavely in 2020? What should we keep an eye out for?
Well, big growth. We have lots of new brands coming into our platform in the next 2 weeks, and I'm incredibly excited about that because we cover everything from everyday products such as fashion, beauty, cooking, travel, home goods.
Yeah. And
we have 300 plus new brands coming on in the next couple of weeks. We have some really beautiful user aspirational aspects of the app that I think women can find. The idea that our cashback is continuing to help thousands of women around the country, I think is something that when two women can shop together in a kind of a communal shopping experience and they both benefit, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So that's the work part. I think Mavely is having massive growth right now, and we're thrilled about that all across the nation.
Well, thanks for taking time with me.
Well, yeah, I'm thrilled to be here. And personally, my family has some travel coming up, so I'm happy to carve out time to travel and be with my children before my second one goes off to college. And then I like to stay disciplined with reading. So if I can, bake in a couple good books over the next vacation and each quarter, then personally and professionally, I feel like reading for me is my escape.
So when you go on vacation, do you completely shut off, or are you still available to some degree?
No, but I'm making an effort this next vacation to really unplug, because I think our soul needs a little bit of time that we can break away. And we have an amazing team here at Mavely. So I know that I could step away for 8 days and they're going to really roll up their sleeves and not only pull their end, but give me a time to take a break and be with my husband, be with my children. Okay, that's good. And I'm asking for a friend, really me, because I'm not good at that part of it. And I'll spend my whole vacation online doing things I should not with my family. So that's good to know. Well, historically, I have been too. And I think 50 has brought a little bit of wisdom that life moves very quickly. And if I don't carve out those little bits of time, especially on a vacation, to have a glass of wine with my husband or, take extra time to cuddle with the kids, then they grow up very quickly and I miss those opportunities. Yeah. Are all 7 of you going on a vacation? That's impressive. My husband and I are taking a vacation in the next quarter, and then the 7 of us will be taking a trip too for spring break. Oh my gosh. I'm just thinking of what car do you even rent for 7 people if you have to rent? It's tricky. Traveling with 7 is tricky. But again, as they get older and they pull their own suitcases, that's a good point. It all works out. Well, fun. Well, I'm very excited for what's coming next. And I love when you talk about grit and hustle, because that makes me think Midwest and that makes me think Chicago. And I think that's actually what we're really good at. So I'm excited for what's to come. And thanks so much for all of your time. Thank you.